FFPC Insider Access is officially live here on the Better Sports Network. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Balkman. You connect with me on the X at Eric Balkman. Of course, you know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, and the Fantasy Football Players Championship. Pleased to welcome back onto the show my good friend from the KFFSC and, of course, the FFPC as well. You check out all her work at Fantasy in Frames, fantasyinframes.com, at Fantasy in Frames on X, Roto Underworld on X, Player Profiler, rotounderworld.com, and, of course, the Dynasty Degens at Dynasty_Degens, at Stacy _Perez 83. She is Stacy Perez. Stacy, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Balky, thanks so much for having me. I've been waiting for this all day. I was like, this is one of my favorite things to do every year is just come hang out and talk football with you. And I know we can talk about our Packers and, just get into it. I can't wait.
Yeah, we will talk about the Packers for sure tonight. This will be a fun show. Coming up on the show tonight, we're not only going to go around the NFL, talk about the backfields in New York and New England, but we'll also get into our Thursday night football preview tonight. Bills and Texans. Seems like a snoozer. Sometimes those snoozers end up being the best games. So we'll get into that in the second segment. And then a bunch of starter sick questions. Feel free to fire them away in YouTube, Twitch, X, whatever you're watching this show on tonight, and we'll answer them. We do have some regarding Kareem Hunt, Jacoby Myers, Jauan Johnson, and Baker Mayfield. So that is all going on the show tonight. Now, Stacy, I was going to try to get this right at the top of the show. I knew I wasn't going to. So I'm going to ask you again, as far as when you are live on the interwebs, on internet streams, who are you doing them for, and when can people watch you?
So I am live on Sunday mornings at 11 with Dynasty Degens. We stream over on Player Profiler Plus, and we do like a start-sit show. It's a Sunday tailgate. And I have a different guest on, and we, just do all the start sets, last minute fantasy stuff, all the breaking news that's going on. And then on Monday nights on Fantasy in Frames, I do the waiver wire watch party. I have to say it very slowly or I'm going to mess that up. During Monday Night Football, we kick off at 8, kind of hang out, watch the game, talk waivers, just, have a lot of fun, talk about the Sunday action from the day before, and, just kind of catch up on what's going on in football.
So the two times you're live, what time does the show start? The Sunday morning tailgate, what time does that start Sunday mornings?
11 a.m. Eastern.
11 a.m. Eastern. And you go right up until 1 o'clock?
No, we stop at noon. That way, everybody's got time to go, make those last minute changes and everything. And yeah. And
then 8 p.m. Eastern time on Mondays.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And then once a year, 7 o'clock p.m. Thursdays on the FFPC Insider Access show.
Yes.
So let's get into it tonight. So one of the things I always love to do is start off the show with something we haven't talked about at all, or that's not listed on the rundown at all. And I want to lead things off here tonight with do I have any? No, I'll tell you what. Let's just go back to what I got here to lead things off. Let's talk about the Giants backfield. Because they went against our Green Bay Packers this past week. And quite frankly, Tyrone, Tracy, and Devin Singletary both put up startable numbers against the Packers Sunday afternoon. 19 carries for 88 yards, 4 catches for 51 yards for Tyrone Tracy. He did not get into the end zone, but it seemed like if there was one back that they were favoring, it seemed to be Tracy. Now, I have my thoughts, and I'll get your thoughts on the Packers' rush defense. I think it's a little bit overrated. I think that it was really evident that they're struggling to get off the field. It seemed like every third and fourth down, the Giants were converting. And as a result, the Giants were able to execute their game plan, shortening the game up and giving them a chance to win until they inevitably got Jameson at the end of the game. But I want to bring up Tyrone Tracy here because this week the Giants go to Detroit, right? He is the guy I like better than Devin Singletary in this backfield, but I feel like even flexing him out, I think you're playing with a little fire here against the Lions. How do you see Tracy right now and sort of the state of this Giants backfield as they head into Motor City?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely Tracy is the guy there right now. Devin Singletary, I guess they're gonna have to use him a little bit since Scadabo's out. Otherwise, he would be kind of completely irrelevant. But I don't like either one of them this week. Not against the Lions. Lions are giving up the fewest rushing yards fewest rushing fantasy points in the league so far this season. And they're at home. I just feel like and they're coming off a couple of really bad games for the Lions. So I just feel like they are really going to get up for this game and just kind of make a statement, show that they are back. I don't think it's going to be a good outcome for the Giants this week. And also, I was kind of thinking about this, Balky. Do you think that maybe the Giants put up a little bit better numbers against our Packers? Because, that's that first game after their coach gets fired. There's something maybe to that a little bit, or maybe normally they wouldn't have had that much success against, and look, I'm with you on the rush defense with the Packers right now, but I mean, they are still really good. So I'm just kind of wondering if that maybe played into a little bit of why they were a little bit more productive than they probably should have been.
I brought that up heading into the game. I've often heard this is more so true in like maybe basketball and hockey than in football. Maybe it's true in football as well. But I always heard you're supposed to bet on the team after they lose a significant component, like a head coach, like a star player.
Yep.
You bet on them to either cover or win that first game, but then after that you start betting against them because it is a little bit of a change. And that did worry me because I do think Mike Kafka is a pretty talented guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, the time that wouldn't he have like a half decade with Andy Reid in Kansas City?
Yeah.
Think about how much he just soaked up there. And so it did make me nervous. And then when Winston is throwing these interception balls and Green Bay is just dropping every single one, I'm like, this is going to come down to the wire. I didn't even know if they were going to win. They end up squeezing it out. So I agree with you. I think there is something there. And we'll see if the Packers defense can clean it up this week when they face Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. More to come on that as well later on in the show. Now, let's go out to San Francisco. And I want to talk Jauan Jennings here. 4 catches on 6 targets this past week in their win over the Cardinals. The 6 targets were good enough for the team lead, with George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey, obviously. And on the day that Ricky Pearsall comes back, Jauan Jennings is still the number 1 wideout on the day. First pass of the game, he catches for 25 yards. And I can't remember who was bringing this up. It might have been Scott Barrett or Graham Barfield, or if I never remember, and I apologize for that. So I'm giving improper credit, or maybe I'm giving proper credit. I don't know. But they said that Ricky Pearsall saw 0 first read targets in that game against Arizona. And you think about, how up and down that game was as far as the offenses and Brissett throwing the ball all over the field. That does surprise me. Now, I don't know if they're easing him back in, but I don't think the switch is flipped or the flip is switched this coming weekend as the Niners get ready to take on the Panthers on Monday Night Football. I think Jennings is another sneaky flex play for people who are missing guys like, Cortland Sutton, Jaylen Waddle, some of these receivers that are on bye this week. I happen to like Jennings this week. Stacy, what do you think?
Yeah, I like Jennings too, although I think this tends to be more of a run-heavy game here. I think this is going to be a CMC game. I think there's a little bit of that, kind of going back to Carolina, a little bit, or not going back. They're coming out to San Francisco, but a little bit of revenge game there. I think he's going to want to show up for his old team. And so I like Jennings. I've got him in the flex in numerous places, and it's great now that Purdy's back. They have that good connection. But I think this is gonna be a little more run heavy. So I probably downgrade him just a smidge. But I do like him this week.
Yeah. And as far as for FFPC, we're talking like secondary, like a second flex. Exactly. I think he's perfect for that for sure. Okay. Moving forward here, I want to talk about, it was 1 week ago that we were getting ready for this Patriots-Jets game. And it's difficult to get up for a Patriots-Jets game in 2025. Very difficult to get excited for something like that. However, we got some fireworks early with a TreVeyon Henderson touchdown. And then just before we went off the air with Casey Kasem from Rotoballer, we got a second TreVeyon Henderson touchdown, which I thought, hey, this is great. This is the Henderson night. And my son, who is 12 years old. I have to think about this. No, he's not 12. Yeah, he is 12. God, he's 12 already. He and I share a fantasy team with one of his with his buddies or whatever. And he has Henderson on that team, and we started him that night. And I was super excited to tell him that Henderson scored 2 touchdowns after he got off the air. My wife was bringing him home from basketball practice. And before I could even say anything, he walks in the door holding up his phone and he says, "Dad, TreVeyon Henderson just scored his 3rd touchdown." And I'm like, What?
What's happening?
We've been waiting for this all year. Like we've
Yeah.
been waiting and waiting and waiting for TreVeyon Henderson to get his just due, for him to do everything he's supposed to do. No block, no rock. He's blocking now, and he's getting the rock. Obviously, the Rhamondre Stevenson thing played a part in Henderson getting all those touches, getting all those carries. And kudos to Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel for not letting Terrell Jennings get in the way
Oh,
of the game last week, which I think was a little bit nerve-wracking for all of us. Now, you think it's over, Stacy. It's not, because we got to go through this again. Mike Reese reporting that Rhamondre Stevenson, and I have not seen anything as far as practice goes today, but Stevenson with that toe was limited in yesterday's practice. He has not played since, I believe, week 9. And the fact that he gets in a limited practice on Wednesday, you probably are, I'm thinking at least he's more on the optimistic side of questionable, but you can't recork the wine. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, or can you, considering the coaches we're dealing with? I love Henderson this week. I'm going to be playing him everywhere, but there's a little bit of pucker that goes to that. I'm a little bit nervous about inserting Henderson in my lineups. How do you think this situation is going to go when New England takes the field this week?
Okay, so if Rhamondre, if Stevenson is cleared, if he's active, and I have him on a league, I am probably starting him against that Cincinnati defense, right? They're so soft against the run. Against the air, different story, but they are so soft against the run. So I feel like this is going to be a big whoever it is in the backfield for New England day. Now, I mean, I've been saying this, this season, you've got to find yourself somebody, Balky, that is going to look at you the way that Mike Vrabel looks at Rhamondre Stevenson, okay? Because he can do no wrong. He can do no wrong in Vrabel's eyes. He can fumble the ball 800 times, does not matter. He's still going to throw him back out there. So if he's available, if he's active, I'm starting him. But I'm still starting Henderson too. This is a great matchup. I feel like you could probably start both of these guys going forward. Are we going to have some questions about who is it? Is it going to still be Henderson? Is it going to go back to Stevenson? We don't know. But this week, I think you start both of them if they're both active.
Shout out to our producer, Sean Engel, tonight, stating that Stevenson was indeed limited in practice today as well. So back-to-back games with a limited practice. Now, what about if you play in a closed 12-team league where it's more important to carry your own handcuffs rather than a big national tournament like the FFPC, KFFSC has to offer? If you have Stevenson and Henderson, you just said they're both startable. Ooh. Are they both startable on the same team? That gets a little dicey.
Oh, it does. It does.
But to your point, it is Cincinnati. And we saw, I mentioned at the top of the show today, last week, you had Tracy and Singletary going up against a good Packers rush defense, and they were both startable. So maybe they are both startable, even on the same team.
Bengals giving up 35.6 fantasy points per game to opposing teams' running backs. That is by far the most in the league. Next closest is the Bills, and they're only at 28. So by far, I think there's very few teams that you can feel comfortable starting both running backs, like Detroit, right? Maybe even Atlanta. You can probably start both in Atlanta now. And now I think this week specifically, I think you can start both in New England.
Yeah. And it makes sense because of the matchup. And I don't think I don't even know if I have any Rhamondre Stevenson teams this year, which is how invested I was in TreVeyon Henderson. Did you get a chance to meet Steven Yergalos, the fantasy soprano at all?
Yes.
States? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I'm in a couple of leagues with him.
Yeah. Yes, I am too. And he apparently, we text back and forth, and or maybe it's something I said on the show. It wouldn't surprise me if it was, because I did load up on TreVeyon Henderson this year. But Steve was like, props to Balky. He's the guy who turned me on to TreVeyon Henderson this year. And he was saying that in late in the drafting season. I'm like, God, I hope it works out. And then I'm like, geez, I hope he stops mentioning that. Right. And now it's like, if you've survived with these Henderson teams long enough and you're still in the playoffs or what have you, now all of a sudden you're like, okay, this could actually work out, even though it hadn't worked out for the first 9 or 10 weeks of the season. All right, let's get into Jameson Williams here. Whiskey Bill, as the kids call him. 4 of 7 targets were snared by him for 88 yards and a touchdown. in their loss to the Eagles this past Sunday night. He also had 1 carry for 9 yards. Now, this was the first full game that Detroit's had this season with Sam Laporta on IR. You noticed, or maybe you did notice that the Eagles really put a focus on taking Amon-Ra St. Brown out of the game. Williams got the big 40-yard touchdown earlier in the second quarter. And then, I guess the Lions come up short in this game, but this was still a win for Jameson Williams fantasy owners. And now he gets the Giants this week, which give up explosive plays like it's a bodily function. We have seen the worm turned here since Dan Campbell took over calling plays over John Morton. Things have changed, and the promise that we were given about Trevion Henderson seems to be coming true. I think you could say a similar thing for Jameson Williams right now. Stacy, he looks dialed in.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they paid him all this money right in the offseason with his extension, and everyone's like, oh, okay, finally it's his year, right? And then it doesn't happen. And then finally it happens now that Campbell's taken over. And you take a look against Washington, 23.9 fantasy points last week against Philly, 19, even before that against Minnesota. He had a good game against Minnesota, and they've got a great defense. So I think it's finally starting to click. Now, I mean, I hate that Laporte is out, right? He's one of my favorite tight ends, but, at least it opens up some more targets for Williams. And I think kind of we see that again against the Giants this week.
Our resident Finns fan, Tom Smith, chiming in on X tonight, saying that everyone on the Lions is going to score this week, even the water boy. The total on that game is 50.5, and yet the Lions are 10.5 point favorite. So if you extrapolate that out, they're projected for about 5 touchdowns this week. And so everybody might score. Who won't score is Sam Laporta. So that obviously targets a little bit more with Gibbs and maybe Montgomery to a certain extent, but definitely with Williams and St. Brown as well. How nervous are you about Laporta? I mean, the fact that they've had the opportunity to say, oh, he'll be back after 4 games, and they haven't yet. I'm wondering if this is a season-long thing here, and maybe we don't even see him in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, that makes me really nervous. Like they're not, being and they're pretty, the Lions, at least from what I know, is they're pretty, they're not sneaky about their injuries. They're pretty straightforward. Yeah. So the fact that they haven't really come out and given a definitive answer about that does make me a little nervous. I'm still like having PTSD from Tucker Kraft's injury. I can't even talk about like tight ends right now. So the fact that like both of them are on the IR, it's like my 2 favorite tight ends in the entire league. It's just, it's brutal right now. But yeah, it does make me very nervous for them.
I feel like I got saved from Tucker Kraft this year because I spent most of drafting season telling people not to draft Packers pass catchers because it's such a fickle thing from week to week where Watson is going to catch 5 for 130 and 2 touchdowns. The next week he'll get 2 for 20. And I thought I was lumping Tucker Kraft in that as well. And then I don't know what happened. I think it was like early to mid-August, and everybody is telling me I'm wrong and that Kraft is going to be great. And I'm like, you know what? I got to start drafting some Tucker Kraft. So I drafted him a few times late, but I definitely was not hit as hard as some other people were this year, which stinks because it not only looked like he was a league winner, Stacy, but it looked like he was the engine that was really making that Packers offense go. Offensively, they have not looked the same since Kraft went down. No. And this is something that's not only a detriment to the Packers' hopes to make a deep postseason run, it's detrimental to people who are hoping for big numbers from Love and Jacobs and Watson and Dobbs and all these guys that they're going to be flexing out or playing in their fantasy lineups. It doesn't give you the warm fuzzies at all with the Packers offense, what we've seen without Kraft.
No, it doesn't. I mean, like after the first couple games of the season, I was like, oh my God, we have Micah Parsons. Oh, we're going to the Super Bowl this year. Like this, we look amazing. And then, it just kind of tailed off, losing to the Browns and then just didn't get any better. And I was one of the people drafting Tucker Kraft all year long. I just love Tucker Kraft, love what he does with Yak and everything. And I just think he's a great player. But, ever since, his injury, we just don't have an answer for that. We don't have an answer to how are we going to replace, the production that he brings. And right now, guess what? It's not Luke Musgrave. He's not able to produce that.
Although I will say, just not to interrupt you, but I guess I am. I will say Matt LaFleur was asked about that after the game because Musgrave had 3 catches for 30 yards. It was
Not great.
non-impactful production. And he was asked about that. And LaFleur, I wouldn't say he went off, but he kind of like kept going back to the point, like, we got to get him more snaps. We got to get him more looks. And he basically said, I'm going to have a conversation with our staff about that. I wonder if that was like an Adam Stenavich thing or something where LaFleur actually wanted to utilize him more and he just wasn't out there. So I do wonder if we're going to see like an overcorrection on the Packers part where we might actually see a little extra Musgrave this week. I don't know. I could be reading too much into it, but it was just weird to hear him talk about it like that.
Well, I mean, I'm all for that. Like, if that's what it's going to take to get him more productive and get, some more of at least what Tucker was giving us back, give him more targets all day. I'm absolutely, if that works, great. If they do that and it still doesn't really, result in anything, then I think then we know our answer.
And the fact that Josh Wiley scores a touchdown from the tight end position for the Packers last week, Musgrave, just rubbing salt into the open Musgrave wound. From Green Bay to Tampa Bay, let's talk about Sean Tucker. Yes. Scott Smith, who covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, had this to say after Josh Grizzard or Grizzard. Is it Grizzard or Grizzard?
I think it's Grizzard. At least I'm saying it Grizzard because that, to me, I just feel like that rolls off the tongue a little bit better.
You're in Tampa too, right? Yeah. So you're the expert on this, much more so.
Grizzard. And he's from like Lizard Lick somewhere. That's like the town that he's from too. Like it's very interesting.
Grizzard from Lizard Lick.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't know. He said Sean Tucker's workload has been going up every week as he continues to do well, and he does expect that to continue. I would assume he's talking about not only Tucker doing well, continuing, but Tucker's workload going up every week. Now, Irving and Sean, you can check this out. I think it was a limited practice today for Tucker, for Irving, beg your pardon. So we don't know what the actual breakdown is going to be. This is a game where the Buccaneers have to travel across the country to take on a fairly tough defense in the Los Angeles Rams. I'm kind of hoping for the people who are counting on Sean Tucker this week that Irving doesn't play. Because if Irving is active in this game, what a cluster F if between Sean Tucker, Bucky Irving, perhaps splitting carries. And Stacy, if we wide scope this, because of Tucker's performance, this is going to cause problems not only in week 12, but going forward, because this could be a really muddled backfield from what was fairly clean at the start of the year. It's clear as a cloud or clear as as fog right now.
Well, it's like, how much do we hate running back by committees, right? And now let's make it 3. That's horrible, and they're all 3 talented in their own in their own ways, right? From what I've been hearing, like local radio here, is that he is practicing on a limited basis, Bucky Irving, but he's not going to be active for the game on Sunday night. Fingers crossed, we'll see if that's but that's the way it looks like it's trending anyway. So we may not have to worry about that at least for another week. But I've always been a big Sean Tucker fan when he was coming out of school, ends up going undrafted because of that heart issue that kind of gets discovered and everything. But, and I've gotten to go to training camp a few times and seen him up close. Like, he just looks so explosive. And I mean, he's looked like the better running back the last couple of weeks. And last year, he had a couple of games that flash. I think he had a 30-point fantasy game. One of those weeks, I think Rachaad White was out, Bucky was out, something like that. He had the starting role. So I'm a big fan of Sean Tucker this week. I mean, it is a really tough defense there against the Rams. I hate, teams going cross country. I don't normally like to, rely on guys that are kind of coming in that way, but it is what it is. It's going into week 12 in fantasy. A lot of us are starting Sean Tucker this week.
I want to get back to the Buccaneers here, but I'm nothing but a people pleaser here, Stacy. So I'm going to go to Firebros 2675 watching us on YouTube right now. We like Dak and Purdy ? Now, this could have multiple answers to it because I do happen to like Brock Purdy this week on Monday Night Football at home against the Panthers. After what I saw last week, Theo Greminger was calling him a league winner. I'm not going to go that far. But I do think if you are in the playoffs right now and you've kept Purdy on your roster this whole time, you waited on quarterback, yes, that this could be a boon for you. So I do like Purdy this week. Prescott on a short week against the Eagles. Yeah, I know it's at home, But I do get nervous about it's a weekly game, and I know this is lazy analysis, but it's a weekly game in fantasy football. And I think so oftentimes we as fantasy players, analysts, whatever, we're prisoners of the moment. And recency bias clouds our judgment on these players. The Cowboys could be looking at being so good and producing so much on Monday night, and then like that, Prescott throws for 170 yards. Pickens and Lamb failed the top 60 yards. No touchdowns in that game, and the Eagles win it 15-12 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult for me to say, yeah, I like Prescott this week. Borderline top 10 option. You may not have a better option, but I like Purdy quite a bit more than I like Prescott in week 12.
Yeah, same. I like the matchups that Purdy has a lot more. They're at home, against, and I don't want to belittle the Panthers either, because they have made some strides. They're not the Panthers they have been the last couple of years. So their defense is a lot better than it has been. But still, I still like Purdy. I like their offense is a lot better. And too, you look at the Cowboys and the Philly, that's a divisional matchup. They're going to play each other tough. And I just don't like what Philly's been doing to opposing teams' quarterbacks this year. They've really been limiting them. I think they're giving up like the 10th fewest fantasy points to opposing teams' quarterbacks. So you don't like that at all. It's hard to not start Dak, right? Unless you have a much better option. But I think you definitely have to downgrade him this week.
Fire Bros, you're very welcome. Hopefully it works out for our analysis on Purdy versus Prescott. Getting back to the Buccaneers here, Stacy. Andrew Erickson, and I'm going to butcher this. Andrew Erickson from Fantasy Pros on a podcast this week was talking about there was a safety that was hurt, and he's still beat up coming into this game against the Buccaneers. And because he missed last week's game, the Rams were down a safety. They were forced to play one of their backup safeties. And A.J. Barner ended up having a pretty good game for Seattle against Los Angeles. Like, I don't know what it was, like 7 targets. He caught like 6 of them for 40, 50 yards, which, on the surface doesn't sound great, but tight end premium scoring, I mean, that could be a difference. And you look at Cade Otton this week, who is coming into this game, granted, off a poor game. He saw 5 targets. He catches 2 of them for 28 yards against the Bills. Cade Otton has the most targets, receptions, and yardage of all NFL tight ends this season that have not scored touchdowns. I think this could be the week. I like him against the Rams. I don't necessarily love Baker Mayfield in this matchup, but I think Otton could return good fantasy value. He's a player that I would think in FFPC tight end premium leagues, I'm not going to say must start, but Stacy, I think he's darn close this week.
I think there's a lot of guys that I would not start. I would start Otton over, I think, at this point. Given the situation there, we are missing so many people in Tampa. I was just taking a look at target share percentages, and over the last 3 games, Otton's target share percentage has gone from 15.6 all the way up to 23.9 over the last 3 games. That is right behind Emeka Egbuka. So he's the number 2 option right now for Mayfield. Mayfield, trust him. He's a big body guy, can get out there, grab the ball. Gives him that other option there. So I really do like Cade Otton this week, especially in that tight end premium format. There's just not too many people I feel more confident starting over Cade Otton, I think, this week.
Shout out to okay, so I'm gonna do this first. Shout out to our man Albert Marroquin 602, who said Quentin Lake is the safety that Erickson was referring to. Quentin Lake played 32 of 84 snaps against the Seahawks before he dislocated his elbow, now had surgery, and he's placed on IR. So he is not playing this week. Another reason to like Otton for sure in this. And then also Sean Engel, our producer tonight, Rondé Barber, Buccaneers legend, who I believe covers the team.
He does. Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he's saying that Irving is going to be listed as out for week 12. So that clears things up a little bit with Sean Tucker. I always bring this up. Dan Williamson from Player Profiler, your colleague there, Stacy, who hosts the Fantasy Empire podcast. He said this last year, but I think it still rings true because he is not a Rachaad White guy. And he says the 3 running backs in the Buccaneers backfield are Bucky, Tucky, and Sucky, referring to Rachaad White. And so he is, and like, I have White on a few KFFSC teams, and at this point, Stacy, I'm just keeping him around just in case that, like Irving isn't ready to come back next week and maybe something happens to Tucker. Like White is now basically a handcuff, right? He's an injury away type guy. I can't give any reasons to keep him on your roster other than the contingent upside.
No, and he has put up some real stinkers the last few weeks. When he has been hurt, the first few weeks of the season, like he's had some games where he's popped, and I have him in a bunch of leagues. In my leagues where I was like holding off on running back, he was one that I went after. Because he actually and this was kind of why I justified it, was he had, I think, 6 receiving touchdowns last season, which was by far more than any other running back within his range of where you were drafting him had. And so that was kind of an upside play for me, was to go grab him for that, kind of potential there. But yeah, he's not looked great at all. And especially with Sean Tucker coming on and just, kind of cementing his role, I think is, going to be going forward running back too. There, you have to hang on to him. It's that time of season, right? Especially if you drop him, you can't go back, get him later or anything like that. So you're hanging on to him, but you're not going to start him.
Our mutual friend, Adam Krautwurst, always says, never drop a running back.
Yeah.
Never
do it.
It always comes back to bite you. I shouldn't say always, but it usually comes back to bite
you.
Back to Tom Smith on YouTube. Any chance Michael Wilson has a decent game this week with Marvin Harrison Jr. out again? Yeah, we found out yesterday that Harrison has already been ruled out for week 12 against the Jaguars. And the fact that he is ruled out this early, I think you can start looking at like, God, is he even going to be available in week 13? Michael Wilson, 15 catches, 185 yards, which, by the way, to the surprise of no one, is more catches and yards than Harrison has ever had in a single game. Now, the Cardinals are throwing it a ton. I don't know how much that changes if Trey Benson comes back this week or maybe in weeks going forward. But Brissett, I paid through the nose for in a couple of dynasty leagues last night because I needed to have a guy like this on my roster, especially with Michael Penix being sent to IR. I had no answers for backup quarterbacks in those leagues. So when we look at it from the standpoint of Michael Wilson, bringing it back to that, I don't see a reason that the Cardinals just go back to running the ball. This is how their bread is buttered. It's Jacoby Brissett throwing the ball all over the field. I love McBride this week. I like Michael Wilson. So to answer Tom's question, any chance he has a decent game? Yes, I think there's a good chance he has a decent game. And I also think there's a solid chance he has another good game. I don't know about 15 for 185, but I do like him this week against the Jags for sure.
Yeah. Oh, same. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think he's going to 185 yards again this week, but I do think that he's going to have a really great game. Besides Trey McBride, he's going to be the guy there. I think we're going to probably touch on Dortch here in a little bit, but yeah, I really do like Michael Wilson this week. I think he's just a phenomenally talented, receiver. He's had a lot of injury issues, coming out of college and everything that he's dealt with, but, it seems like he's finally healthy. He's really connected with Brissett, and Brissett has kind of come in and just kind of been that guy that, what they say, like a rising tide lifts all boats. Like that's exactly what he's done with this offense. It's looked night and day better than it has with Kyler Murray. And I mean, you think you can take a look at the stats with Trey McBride, how he was never getting in the end zone with Murray. And now he's had 7 touchdowns this season. So yeah, just all day with the Cardinals, Wilson, McBride, all those guys.
I want to ask you the question on Twitch we're getting from Vivi Machito. I think that I'm pronouncing that right. Vivi Machito. Yo, should I start Jordan Addison or Alec Pierce? Jordan Addison going up against the Packers at Lambeau Field. Still up in the air. I may or may not go to that game. Versus Alec Pierce, who is at Arrowhead. And I have made up my mind. I will not be at that game this week. I look at this from the standpoint of the quarterback. Now, this is what we probably should have let off the show with this, and this is my fault. But to answer this question, I think we have to talk about Daniel Jones here first, Stacy. He was not on the injury report yesterday, and then he's listed as a limited participant today with a calf injury. So this is a midweek downgrade. Ian Rappaport said that he believes the Colts are being cautious in this, so that's probably good. I think he plays at this point, but this does throw a little bit of cold water on this. The good part about this, neither one of these teams play tonight. So we'll find out what the practice reports are for Jones and so on and so forth. By the time Sunday rolls around, we have to get these lineups solidified. My belief is I trust Daniel. I can't believe I'm saying this. I trust Daniel Jones more than JJ McCarthy at this point. And the fact that Alec Pierce has been so prevalent in the rise of Daniel Jones to, being a quasi MVP candidate right now, it's tough for me to say, yeah, no, I like Addison better than Pierce here. I think I would play Pierce, assuming Jones is active for this game, which I think he will be. Assuming he's active, I would play Pierce over Addison. What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, you have to refer to Daniel Jones as his alter ego, Indiana Jones, which makes him much cooler than Daniel Jones. I do like Pierce more than Addison this week. I don't like what I'm seeing out of JJ McCarthy at all. Don't care for that. I think you've seen like a definite downgrade in how Jefferson's been able to produce. Addison too. It's affected both of them. So like Kansas City is going to be a tough defense. That's going to be a tough matchup for the Colts. But I still think, given the target share, I mean, he's kind of pushing. Alec Pierce is kind of pushing, for wide receiver one there against Michael Pittman. He's taken over a lot of that target share lately in the last several games. So I got to go Pierce on this one. I think right now, just go with the hot hand.
Somewhere your cousin Farrell Elliott's head is exploding right now with this Michael Pittman sacrilege blasphemy that we're hearing. But I think you're right for what it's worth.
Numbers are what they are.
So I think it's Pierce over Addison, and we'll stay on Twitch here with Explubbu, if I'm pronouncing that right. Hey, Kenneth Walker or Quinshon Judkins this week. Kenneth Walker at Tennessee. We'll talk more about Walker later. I have some thoughts on this. Quinshon Judkins at Las Vegas. Love the matchup for Judkins here. I am playing Judkins over Walker, even with the uptick in production and touches for Walker. I can't, in good conscience, sit Judkins in favor of Walker.
Yeah, same. Not with that matchup, and then we don't know who is it going to be. Sanders at quarterback for sure.
I mean, I think Stefanski announced it that Gabriel is not clearing concussion protocol, and then it will be Sanders at quarterback.
Yeah,
how do you play that, Stacy? When you think about that, like, that means more action in the running game for Judkins, but that also means, like, are they going to be able to sustain drives with Shedeur Sanders at quarterback? I don't know.
That's what I feel like. Max Crosby is going to make Shedeur Sanders' day real miserable, and so like I'm definitely all in on the Judkins train right now.
There's plenty of criticisms on Sanders coming out of Colorado, but one of the biggest I heard was how many sacks this dude took, like just inexcusable amounts of time where he's holding on to the football and not getting rid of it. We saw some of that this past week. Now he will get the opportunity to run with the first team and have a full week of reps. I don't know how much that figures into it. And it is the Raiders defense this week too. So there's something to be said for that. That said, I have picked up the Raiders defense in a few of my fantasy leagues, and I'll be running them out there against Shedeur Sanders. So
same. That was a popular one that, when I was looking at like, all right, who am I going to go? I was like, well, let's throw Vegas in this week.
Yeah. I do you normally stream defenses in your league, Stacy? How do you normally handle that?
Yeah, I mean, so unless I'm in Kentucky, right, and that's a whole different scoring with defenses. Right. But normally, it's going to be my last pick. That if I have to play with a kicker or something too, like those two are going to be my last two picks, and then I'll deal with it from week to week. I might try to get like a decent one occasionally if it works out, but for the most part, I think just they're going to give you probably the same amount of points, right, as maybe like a flex option, maybe a lower end flex, something like that from week to week. So I'm not as worried about that. So I just prefer usually let me go matchup to matchup.
I probably shouldn't be telling you this because we compete in a lot of leagues together, but the way I've handled defenses in Kentucky, even though the defensive scoring like defensive scoring on steroids there, I still stream defenses there. I usually, what I'll do is 19th round, 20th round, I'll grab a defense that has a good week one matchup or whatever. Yep. I think people have been kind of duplicating that over the years, so that's a little bit more difficult to do. So I'll try to grab a
Cardinals.
Yes, exactly. Oh yeah, huge. Yeah. And that wasn't even just week one. They had a really good September
for 6 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So after like 8 or 9 are off the board, I'll grab one. But then like I begin my defensive evolution over the course of the season because of bye weeks and stuff. People start dropping these defenses. Yep. There's a lot of people that will invest in 2 defenses in Kentucky. And then they inevitably are like, God, I got to cut one of these guys to get a third wide receiver in my lineup this week. Yep. And then I just sort of cobble them together. So I'm constantly like looking at rest of season schedule
Yeah.
and trying to figure out, and then I do like to have two defenses.
Yeah.
Optimally, I'm playing like a top 5 defense every single week based on the matchup the rest of the season. Doesn't always go that way. That's usually like how I had to handle it. Okay. A lot on defense there. By the way, Tom chiming in our defensive discussion. Dallas defense last week, Raiders defense this week. Who knew? But you know what? That's fantasy, right? That's part of the game. And if you can nail that part of your lineup down, you're going to have an advantage over a lot of your opponents this year. And Crimney on Twitch. But shout out to all the Twitch users tonight. This is awesome seeing that so many Twitch people in here. Hate to ask kicker question, but very close week and it's must win. Go Fairbairn tonight or stick with McLaughlin versus the Rams. Now, Stacy, I don't know if I have any miracle kicker analysis on this. I utilized Fairbairn earlier in the season.
Yeah.
Then the middle part of the season, then I cut him in a lot of leagues when he had that injury. I think he had an injury, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And so I cut him, and I do have McLaughlin in a lot of spots. Now, I don't necessarily think it's the greatest matchup. I'm just seeing this right now too.
He's no injury designation. Are you talking about for Fairbairn? Is that what you're looking for?
McLaughlin. Now McLaughlin, I'm looking at. Yeah, why is he listed as questionable? Or am I looking at? I might be looking at this.
I had looked up because I knew that I had seen something earlier in the week about Fairbairn. So I wanted to check and see, and the latest news from yesterday was that he has no injury designation.
Okay.
I just looked at this, and this was something that I had not realized. Fairbairn has the most fantasy points per game of all kickers.
Wow. That is surprising.
McLaughlin is at 9.9. He's 10th overall. Fairbairn's 11.9. So not a huge difference there. They're both in domes. That's usually kind of how I pick my kickers, is who's going to play in domes more often, especially when you get towards the end of the season, with the nasty weather everywhere. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I go with it. Tonight, you've got those two guys. It looks like the dome question has been answered. I got to go with Fairbairn here.
I'm going to say this. I
like Joe's comment. in the comments for Fairbairn could be 75% of
chiming in saying that Fairbairn could be 75% of the Texans' points tonight, which
not wrong.
Yeah, it's not wrong. The total on that is 44.5. The total on the Buccaneers Rams game is 49.5.
Okay. Both
of these teams are underdogs. The Bucs by 6.5, the Texans by 5.5. So I don't think there's much to glean on there. It kind of depends upon like what your roster looks like. Are you dropping somebody to pick up Fairbairn? Are you dropping McLaughlin to pick up Fairbairn? That I would not do. I'd rather have McLaughlin the remainder of the season, even with that great stat that you brought up about Fairbairn. If you have both of them on your team, then yes, it's Fairbairn. This is so razor thin. Stacy is a better fantasy player than I am, so I'm going to go with her and say it's Fairbairn tonight because it's that close. I don't know, just so. And listen, the lights shine on those primetime players. So why wouldn't you want to watch Thursday night football and enjoy, kick back with a cold one and watch Fairbairn pipe all these field goals as the Bills defeat them 35-12? I think that's the way to look at it. I don't know.
And usually I was just thinking now, like my rule with domes, and then one of my other rules is like I normally hate Thursday night games and I try to avoid them as much as possible because they're always weird. There's always something strange that's going to happen. And I was like, well, that goes against my Thursday night rule, but it's kickers, guys. Like, who knows who's going to do what from which week?
I think that's the best advice we can give you is like, we think Fairbairn, but with the level of confidence we have in this is not great. All right. So we have Flies Beats chiming in right now. Flies, appreciate the kind words from you. Chase Brown with no Jamar Chase or Breece Hall with no Justin Fields. So if we look at this game, not the greatest matchup for the Bengals taking on the New England Patriots, but Joe Burrow could be back for this game too, which I think is interesting. I think Breece Hall is fine. It's just really difficult for me to believe in that Jets offense. And the fact that this is the week 12 Ravens defense rather than the week 4 or 5 Ravens defense, to me, Stacy, has me thinking like, I got to play Chase Brown here. I can't sit Brown, especially if Burrow's back out there. I can't sit Chase Brown in favor of Breece Hall here.
Well, Balky, I hate disagreeing with you, but I think I got to take Breece.
Right.
I don't like Chase Brown this week against the Patriots. They are giving up, I think it's the fewest rushing yards per game this season. I saw a stat, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, that said the only running back so far this season that had managed to get more than 50 yards on the New England defense was our one and only Sean Tucker. Bijan couldn't do it. There's a whole list of, your top tier running backs. Not one of them had been able to do it. The only one that could do it was Sean Tucker. So that to me says, you know what, Chase Brown, you're not having a great season anyway. You've been pretty disappointing. I think this is going to be, we're throwing from behind a lot during this game. So I'm going to go with, I'd rather have the Cincy pass catchers than I want anything to do with their backfield.
But is Chase Brown not a Cincy pass catcher?
Oh, fair. Touche.
Yeah. No, I don't know. You could be right. Cause here's the thing. You could be right and wrong at the same time, where Brown gets like 35, 40 rushing yards, but he catches 7 balls for like 60 yards.
Too. Yeah. And a touchdown. Who knows?
And a touchdown. Who knows?
Yeah.
The total on that game's 50.5. And Cincinnati is obviously going to have it. We say it's a negative game script for Chase Brown, but because how involved in the passing game he is, then maybe it's not a negative game script. Now, to throw another pepper in the gumbo here, this is Burrow, or it could be Burrow, not Flacco. Yeah. And Burrow, I think, is talented enough where he doesn't need to necessarily check it down as much as Flacco does, right? Yeah. But Burrow won't have Chase. So then do you, if you're Cincinnati, if you're Zach Taylor, do you design stuff for Chase Brown to get more involved in the game? Do you get these screen passes to him? Do you utilize him, over the middle just for the quick 4, 5, 6 hitters, 4, 5, 6 yard hitters? I don't know. So I think I'm with you. I don't see a really good path to rushing success in this game for Chase Brown, but not necessarily in fantasy success. Now, to kind of disagree with myself here. The Jets are 13.5 point underdogs in Baltimore. I don't see Breece Hall having success rushing the football, but we know how talented he is catching the football.
Yeah.
Both of these guys could get shut down from a rushing standpoint, Stacy, and then still blow up with, a half dozen catches or maybe even more in these games too, which is wild. So I guess when it comes down to it, Stacy is saying Hall. I am saying Chase Brown. We can't help you, Flies.
No.
Not on this one. But I will say, listen to Stacy. Okay, moving on for your.
I was like, Balky, this sounds like my worst nightmare of like a multiple choice question, like Chase Brown or Breece Hall. Like, oh my god!
If you could play both of them, great. But apparently, Fly's team is so good, he's got to sit one of them. So there you go. On that. Now, keeping it on the running back conversation, let's go to Minnesota. 6 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown for Jordan Mason this past week against the Bears. It was a ripe matchup for the Vikings, and yet it was Aaron Jones who really dominated the backfield. 16 carries, 3 catches, ran a lot more routes than Jordan Mason, to no one's surprise. In his last 4 games combined for Jordan Mason, 24 rushing attempts, and we know he doesn't normally catch passes. You keep him on your bench for contingent upside. I don't want to play him anywhere this week against the Packers. And I do believe a little bit of extra juice for Aaron Jones coming back to Lambeau Field. Jones is the play over Mason this week. I don't think Mason's flexible at all, and I don't care what format you're playing in.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Jordan Mason heard all of us talking trash about him last week and then went out and scored a touchdown. But I don't think that's going to stop me this week either. It's Aaron Jones's week for sure against the Packers there in Green Bay. And man, that's going to be, Aaron Jones was one of my favorite Packers. So that's just always hard to watch. But I think it's Aaron Jones's week for sure. Mason, I think that's an outlier. I don't think that's going to be the normal for him going forward. He's going to go kind of, regress back to what he'd been doing the last several games.
What's funny about Aaron Jones, and he was beloved, obviously, in Green Bay. There's been a significant history of beloved Packers going to Minnesota. Aaron Jones just continues down that line. We had Aaron Jones do it. We had Greg Jennings do it. We had Brett Favre do it. Like it seems like it's sort of like
Rodgers wanted to do it.
And Rodgers wanted to do it. It almost seemed like, wherever your next team is, your connecting flight was in Minneapolis, flying out of Green Bay, and then you just stayed there. Like the Vikings just kept you there, and you never got to your next team. I don't know. All right, let's talk about Bhayshul Tuten. This is a fun one here. We found out yesterday, and Sean, you can check this out. I have not seen the Jacksonville practice reports today, but I can tell you that Tuten was limited in practice yesterday. He hurt his ankle late in the Week 11 game, and he was on pace for a massive game.
Yeah.
Still got 74 yards, still got a touchdown, 15 attempts in this game too. Travis Etienne, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's dealing with an injury right now too, Stacy. Yeah. So,
I think so.
So the gap is obviously closing between these two players. This was Tuten's probably his best game as a pro, I think. And when it comes down to it, both of these guys need to be rostered. I am not one of the people that is going to say, hey, if these guys are both active, I want Tuten in my lineup. It's still ETN for me, but man, it's getting close. And I wonder for all of us, and I don't know if I ever said Tuten was going to be a league winner this year. I might have. I do a lot of shows. I say a lot of crazy stuff. At some point, that might have come out of my mouth. But as far as Tuten being a league winner, if ETN were to go down, based on what I saw this past week and based on what could happen this week against Arizona, I don't know. Like Tuten is all of a sudden a very exciting player again here in late November.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had to start Tuten in a league. And I was not mad about it until I saw that injury, and then I was kind of freaking out. But hopefully he's back this week, and it's not going to be an issue going forward. But I mean, they haven't had much luck in the passing game there in Jacksonville. So I think they are going to have to keep leaning on their running backs. So I like Tuten. Hopefully he is back. Hopefully that ankle is going to be okay for Sunday. But yeah, I mean, and you're right. I mean, we are still starting ETN if that's the choice, if they're both back there and they're both healthy. But man, Tuten is, what week was he getting picked up off waivers? Balky, do you remember?
Oh, it's a good question. I do
not. That would mean that's kind of what I want to go back to, because that's where you're going to see. I mean, if he ends up staying healthy, there's some things going on with ETN that kind of limit his production a little bit. I think he would be a top candidate for league winner if somebody you grabbed off waivers.
So, and we're also getting Joe King pointing this out. Remember Brian Thomas Jr., who I do believe got logged in a limited practice yesterday.
Yeah.
He could be back this week as well.
No one's remembering Brian Thomas Jr.
I remember him. I definitely remember him because I got burned.
Yes.
What's funny is one of my Kentucky dynasties. I won the league last year, Stacy, and I'm like, God, this is amazing. Look at this team. And it's a really good team. And it was highlighted by, I got Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. I had 2 first-round picks.
Oh, my God.
It was highlighted. So I'm like loving life coming into this season.
Yeah.
I'm not anymore with that team. And that team went from first place, and it did not make the playoffs this year, which it humbles you. Fantasy football.
Oh, it does.
For sure.
I'm in the same. I don't know how many teams where I was in the later part of the draft and I took Brian Thomas Jr. and that has just haunted me.
You know what's sick about this is I was lamenting having all these top 3 picks in Kentucky this year. Like, God, I got so many freaking Jamar Chase teams and whatever. Am I ever going to get a Malik Neighbors team? Am I ever going to get a Brian Thomas team? And to a certain extent, a Nico Collins team? Well, finally I started getting them. And you know what? Those teams didn't turn out so great.
Nope. I'm not ready to talk about Nico either. I'm so overexposed on Nico Collins. It's working out now. It's okay. But, most of those teams are dead anyway at this point. So
for more analysis on Nico Collins, stick around because Stacy is going to be talking about Collins, some of these other Texans wide receivers, and we'll talk about what's going on with Khalil Shakir and maybe more importantly, what the heck is going on with Keon Coleman. Our Thursday night football preview is up next here on FFPC Insider Access on the Better Sports Network. Stacy Perez, Fantasy and Frames, Player Profiler, Dynasty Degens. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. We give you our Bills-Texans preview right after this.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. We all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in 1 million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at my FFPC. You can go out and you can take the number one running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at: $35, $100, or $200 buy-in. And you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high stakes games are. That's where the best experts play. And that's where I play, because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket and put that in my bio. FFPC champion. And the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
We want to remind you, as Andrew Cooper just did from Fantasy Alarm, that the FFPC Weekly Challenge Thursday version, as well as the Sunday version, the Thursday version is still live for about another 20 minutes or so. There's no draft. There's no salary cap. You're just picking 10 players or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses. And then you just let them go. The only thing is you can't have the same player on the same team. If you want Josh Allen, you can't have James Cook. If you want Dalton Schultz, you can't have Nico Collins. You can win up to $2,500, 10, 30, and 100 team contests available now. MyFFPC.com. That is MyFFPC.com to play in the FFPC Weekly Challenge. This is the FFPC Insider Access Show live on the Better Sports Network. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, downloading this, streaming it. Whatever. I don't know if I ever made the formal announcement, but about 3 months or so ago, our wonderful producer, Sean Engel, started sending me the audio for these shows. So in case you're not a viewer and you like to consume your podcast in audio form, you can get this pretty much anywhere you get podcasts as well. That'll be up sometime tonight. So check that out in case you're watching this and you're like, God, I wish they had audio on this. Shout out to Mason Spain, who kind of put that idea in my head, a longtime FFPC and KFFSE player. So that is available now, thanks to Mason Spain and some other people who had asked for it as well. Okay. Thursday night football, Miss Stacy Perez from Player Profiler, Fantasy and Frames, and Dynasty Degens. Let's talk about Josh Allen. He had a massive week last week. At right about the point I think people were starting to regret utilizing a high pick on him. He throws for 3 touchdowns. He rushes for 3 touchdowns. When you look at his remaining schedule, when you look at what, quite frankly, maybe schedule doesn't make a difference with Josh Allen because of how talented he is. Is he about to go on a run? Is he about to do something that is going to cause us once again to draft him high in 2026 drafts because he's going to help us win a lot of cash down the stretch of the season? How do you look at Josh Allen, not only tonight against Houston, but for the remainder of the 2025 campaign?
So I think you're right. Like, I'm not looking at the schedule necessary. I'm looking at what month is it? Because in November and in December, right now, Josh Allen's career, he's got 12 wins, 4 losses in November, and he averages about 41.4 rushing yards per game in November as well. And then if you move to December, he's got 21 wins and 9 losses there. And his performance tends to be a lot stronger in the later months of the year. And, his rushing yards usually bump up from November to December. So that's what I'm looking at. So historically, that's kind of what he's done. I don't see any reason why that will change this year. So I am counting on him to go on a run in a few of my leagues here. I'm hoping that history will repeat itself again for him.
I looked at the schedule just now, and again, it's Josh Allen. It may not make a difference, but this tonight, you get the Texans in Houston. You have to go on the road next week, but you're coming off the mini bye to Pittsburgh, which granted has been playing better defense, I would say, over the last month or so. You get the Bengals at home. Yum, yum, give me some. That's going to be great. But then you go to New England, you go to Cleveland, and you host Philadelphia for the championship week sprint. I don't know if that's great, but I also can tell you probably don't have a better option, and you're still rolling Josh Allen out there. James Cook is a player that I was down on this year. I think because of the contract situation. And, I know, like, I just go by history, and history says these guys who sit out and then try to come back and get the full experience of training camp in this finite amount of time to try to get ready for the regular season, oftentimes deal with some soft tissue injuries. Well, that didn't happen with James Cook. He's been unbelievable for the majority of the season here. I will say this. If you look at what Cook has been able to do this season, he's just under 1,000 yards rushing, which is pretty impressive considering we're not even to Thanksgiving yet. If you look at his game logs, part of the reason was he went back-to-back weeks, 216 rushing yards and then 114 rushing yards. Failed to top 60 against Miami, failed to top 50 against Tampa. Is this going to change tonight against Houston, a tough defense? And given how far we let him slip in high-stakes drafts this year, Stacy, do you think that he has the potential, or what's his level of league winnerhood? Like, is it likely to happen, not likely to happen? How do you look at James Cook tonight and for the rest of the season?
So I like James Cook quite a bit, actually. And if you take a look at like, where did we draft him? Like, I think he was going around like running back 13 or so back, during our seasons, gearing up in our drafts and everything. And so right now, if you look at, okay, here, what is his production? I'm on Fantasy Pros right now. He's putting up, let's see, 18.3 points per game in PPR formats. So the only players that are outproducing him at this point, Jonathan Taylor, McCaffrey, Achane, Robinson, and Gibbs. So for a player that you drafted as running back 13, and now he is giving you this kind of production, to me, that's kind of a league winner there, because you passed on some of those big names, right? Like a Derrick Henry or a Bucky Irving or something like that, guys that were going ahead of him for sure. And he has just completely outproduced them. So I like what James Cook is doing. I think a lot of people too were down on him. They're like, he's not going to have the same kind of, touchdown, production that he had last year. That's going to regress. He's still putting up great numbers, and Josh Allen can't run it in every time, right? That's kind of what happened against the Bucs, right? Josh Allen just completely took over. I don't think Cook was necessarily needed in that game. So, I am on board with James Cook being a league winner. I could absolutely see him. There's a lot of teams out there, I'm sure, probably, that are going to walk away with some money because of James Cook.
He and you just pointed this out, Stacy. Joe King pointed this out on YouTube. There was TD regression, we thought, coming for James Cook. Not saying that that's still not the case, but he scored 16 rushing touchdowns last year. Through 10 games this season, he's got 7. So it's not like he's hasn't been getting into the end zone. I think that puts him on pace for about 12 touchdowns this year, which, I mean, I'll take that for touchdown regression, 16 down to 12, given the fact, and bear this in mind too. All of 2024, dude had 1,009 yards rushing. He only played in 16 games, for what it's worth. He's already at 968.
Yeah.
So he is, whatever that is, 41 yards rushing behind his full total from last year. Touchdown regression could happen for James Cook, and he could still be a better player and put up better numbers in 2025 than he did in 2024. Mr. Bakes-a-Lot, Stacy, this is unfair to you. I'm throwing it to you because, and if you don't have anything for it, I'm sorry, Mr. Bakes-a-Lot. Got an IDP question. Who do you guys feel will have more tackles, Matt Milano versus the Texans or Geno Stone versus the Patriots? I have no blanking idea. I don't play IDP. I did one time in the late 90s, and I'm like, this is not for me, and I gave it up. I know there are great websites out there that you can check out. Stacy, could you recommend anybody that might be able to answer this question on X?
So, actually I can. I can recommend. So at Fantasy and Frames, one of the things that we do a lot over there, not me, but Jorge Edwards is really big into IDP. And so he would be one that I would go check with and see what he thinks on that. I will tell you my particular strategy when it comes to IDP. I don't play a lot of it. I have one IDP league. It's our Fantasy and Frames group league. I go with guys whose names I know, and Balky, I'm a little embarrassed. I don't know who Geno Stone is. So I got to go with Matt Milano.
It sounds like a porn actor, quite
frankly.
It
does. It really does.
I do know Matt Milano, and I know he's been a really talented player for Buffalo for years. You can go to fantasyandframes.com at fantasyandframes, and of course at Jorge B. Edwards on X, and ask him right now, and he will help you out, Mr. Bakes, a lot more so than Stacy and I can on this. All right. let's go back to Khalil Shakir. Let's talk about him. He didn't get any practices in this week because his wife and him had a kid.
Yeah.
And I'll say this too, John Hansen and Brett Whitefield from Fantasy Points were talking about this. They believe he's playing hurt. They believe this ankle injury, which I think he had early before the season started, which was a re-injury of the same ankle problem that he had in 2024. They think it's limiting to him. He's got no burst. He's got no separation. His pets' heads are falling off. It's all bad things going on right now for Khalil Shakir. That said, Dalton Kincaid's out tonight, which means if there is a gotta have it guy on third down, a go-to guy for Buffalo tonight in the passing game, it's got to be Shakir. And even with this stuff working against him, no practice this week, dealing with the ankle injury. Matthew Berry always says this, trust is a strong word, but whatever is the next closest thing down from trust, that's what I'm doing with Shakir. I only have him in a couple leagues. I'm playing him in both of them tonight. I feel okay about it, but not great about it here. What do you think what we're looking at with Shakir tonight with the red flags I mentioned, and also knowing that Houston's got a pretty good defense?
They do have a great defense. So even if he was healthy, and I don't know his situation, with injuries and stuff like that, but let's say that he is playing hurt, even healthy, you're downgrading anybody going up against that Houston secondary, whether they're Jamar Chase or Khalil Shakir, it doesn't matter. You're still going to downgrade them a little bit. So, you've got that to kind of worry about. If it's not Shakir, I don't know who it is, because we're certainly not going to go pick up Josh Palmer. And beyond that, there's not too many other options there in their, in their passing game. So, Shakir, I think you have to trust him here. He's a veteran, he'll be out there, he knows he's a professional football player. He knows how to get open and play the game. So, it's going to be a tough fight for him for sure. But, I still think you're probably in a situation where you probably do have to start him. But lower those expectations a little bit.
I'm lowering my dynasty expectations for Keon Coleman. Adam Schefter reported last week that Coleman missed he reported this Sunday morning, but he missed a team meeting on Friday. And the Bills made him a healthy inactive against the Buccaneers this past week. They apparently wanted to play him in his normal role, but then they decided not to based on missing the team meeting. Now, I thought this is a 1 week thing. And then ESPN reported about an hour ago that Coleman was expected to be inactive again tonight against the Texans. This is the third time that Coleman has missed a game in 2 years due to disciplinary issues. He was also held out against the Jaguars in 2024 just for the first quarter, and then the first offensive series this year against the Patriots in week 5. And what stinks is we just brought this up. This is a golden opportunity for him to shine with a hobbled Shakir out there. Nobody else we can trust. I think.
Gabe Davis, Balky. They elevated Gabe Davis from the practice squad.
And we also have something called Tyrell Shavers out there as well. So I think that Coleman, I wouldn't even trade for him in Dynasty.
No.
It just makes no sense at this point. He's looking like a massive bust. Tonight, we mentioned our misgivings about fully trusting Khalil Shakir in our lineups. And when you consider Tyrell Shavers, Gabe Davis, Mecole Hardman, you mentioned Palmer, Curtis Samuel, obviously out as well.
Right.
I cannot find a good, I guess the only player I would consider if I'm desperate and I'm missing wide receivers and running backs this week in a flex is Shavers based on the connection that him and Allen had last week. But I don't even trust that. I mean, it's just, this is wild. And we've, as Packers fans, we hear this all the time. We heard it all the time with Aaron Rodgers. Why can't Green Bay get him weapons? And now we're hearing it in Buffalo. Why can't not Joe Shane? What's his name? Brandon Beane. Thank you. Brandon Beane, Why can't Brandon Beane get and to the point where he went off on our good buddy Mike Shope's radio station, WGR 550, earlier this season? Like, we're putting up all these points or whatever. And I guess they tried to trade for Jaylen Waddle. It didn't happen. This is bad news for Buffalo tonight against a pretty good Texans defense. To bring it back to my original question, is it Khalil Shakir or bust? And if you were to trust one of these other receivers and start him tonight, who would it be, Stacy?
So we have a lot of good friends of ours that are in upstate New York that play with us, who are pretty dialed into their Bills. And I got to talk with Louis G last week, and he was like, you know what? This is not going to be the only week. This is not going to be the only week that he's a scratch. He goes, I even bet you that he might not even play for the Bills the rest of the season. And they were just like, they're done with his act. It's just, at this point, what are you doing? Like, this is your job. Like, you're playing full time for 18 weeks. Like, how are you missing meetings? Like, you're not just late, you're missing meetings. That's insane to me. And then I also saw, I'm so embarrassed to even say where I saw this on TikTok today with Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco. And they were talking about this, and they were just saying, like, Ocho Cinco was going off there, like, look, like, this guy, there are certain players like CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, right? They're going to get held out for the first drive when they mess up, right? Because they're talented. And, they're like, Keon Coleman, you ain't talented enough to be doing this kind of, shenanigans. Yeah. And then they showed a clip of him following, him. Everybody's out on the field. He's in street clothes. He's dancing on the sidelines, yucking it up. This is clearly not somebody who understands the severity of what's going on here. So he's not taking it seriously to me. And then so that just kind of reinforced what Louis said, is he may not play for them the rest of the season. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens now that it's 2 weeks in a row. So back to your question, who are we trusting, right? I like Shavers. And I did also kind of do the Snoop Dogg meme where it was like, who? After that touchdown last week. But I went back and I looked at his usage all season. Despite being a complete unknown to pretty much everybody, right? Like, he's actually been really involved in their offense. His snap percentage is at a really decent amount. So I'm going to go Shavers here. It feels like he's been on the field. It seems like he's dialed into that offense. Maybe he's going to take advantage of the opportunity he's now being given because of Coleman not being in the lineup there. And then also, God knows, Gabe Davis, come on. Like, at some point, they're gonna end up he's gonna get a long pass down the field, go like 80 yards and a touchdown or something crazy, and then the Nets like do nothing. But yeah, I think Shavers would probably be the one that I think kind of steps into this role.
Two bold predictions that I don't think are very bold. Gabe Davis will end the season with multiple 3 for 130 and 2 touchdown games. Yeah. And the other bold one, what's going to happen with Keon Coleman. Our good friends in Dallas with Jerry Jones are going to let George Pickens. They're not going to franchise him, which Jerry Jones will give us a big word salad of why he didn't think it was proper to franchise George Pickens. Let him go to free agency. He will sign a massive contract. One of my buddies is saying it's going to be with Tampa. I don't know if that's.
Oh, please no. Oh, George Pickens. Yeah. Okay.
Pickens. I'm saying Dallas lets him go, and then to replace him, Jerry Jones trades a 6th-round pick to Buffalo after the season's over for one Keon Coleman. And it'll be Coleman next to CeeDee Lamb, which, I mean, you think Lamb and Pickens get into trouble in Vegas. What do you see Keon Coleman?
Right.
All right. So Dawson Knox, we have to talk about here tonight. For FFPC tight end premium league, Stacy, no Dalton Kincaid. Do you believe that Knox is a decent play here? And then I'll bring this up as well, because I think he caught a touchdown last week. This tight end for Buffalo, and I'm the name is escaping me. I'm trying to
Jackson Hawes.
Jackson Hawes, thank you. I always want to call it Spencer Hawes after the old center for the Sacramento Kings in the NBA. Jackson Hawes catches the touchdown here, which maybe gums it up for Dawson Knox. But for people who are looking to start a tight end as their second flex in FFPC leagues, what do you think about Dawson Knox?
So, until the emergence of Jackson Hawes, like, I was definitely team Dawson Knox whenever Keon Coleman, oh my gosh, I'm going to think of his name here, whenever Dalton Kincaid is not on the field, right? He, for the last few years has been a huge red zone target for Allen. So I was kind of like one of those, let's throw an anytime touchdown for Dawson Knox whenever Kincaid misses a game. Now with Hawes there, it does kind of mess it up a little bit. So you kind of look at the last two, games here, that Kincaid's missed against Miami and Tampa, and he hasn't really done much, even though he's been on the field a ton. So I don't necessarily love it. I think without Hawes there, I think he's an automatic start, especially in tight end premium without Kincaid. Yeah. But I don't know that I can kind of support that with Hawes in the mix right now.
The fact that he was involved last week and the fact that this is a tougher defense tonight, I think those are two things that have me breaking ties against Dawson Knox tonight, so I'm staying away from him. Tom Smith has an Andre Yoshivash question. We're going to get to that. Driver 1036 on Twitch. I will get to the Jayden Reed discussion here in a little bit as well, because I think it's important to bring up. Before we get to that, I want to talk about the Texans briefly. Woody Marks must start. Does that descriptor fit Marks tonight against the Bills in a game where he should be out there catching passes from Davis Mills in a game that Houston should be playing from behind most of the game? I wonder how close he is to must start this week, Stacy.
For me, he's a must start for sure. I mean, it's a great matchup there against the Bills. I think they're giving up about the second most fantasy points per game to opposing teams' running backs. I mean, remember what Devin Achane did to them. So it's not like there's really anybody else back there. They came out and said Mixon isn't going to be playing for the rest of the season. That's not really a big surprise. And Nick Chubb's just a shell of himself. So, and then they released Dameon Pierce today. I saw that news earlier this afternoon. And so, it's Woody Marks' game. It's his backfield right now. And so, volume alone, I think, makes him a must start tonight, especially with that great matchup against the Bills.
Are we seeing one rookie receiver out of Iowa State starting to turn it on for Houston? That's Jaden Higgins. 2 for 32, 1 for 28, 1 for 5, 1 for 24, 4 for 32, a bagel, 4 for 34, and then 1 for 4. That was his first 9 weeks as a pro in the NFL. Last 2 weeks against Jacksonville, 5 catches, 42 yards and a touchdown. This past week, 4 catches for 55 yards and a touchdown. He has seen 7 or more targets 3 times this season, 2 of those times coming within the last 2 weeks. What do you envision for Higgins tonight with Davis Mills throwing to him against the Buffalo defense that you usually beat on the ground rather through the air? And then your viewpoint on Higgins, whether he's going to be a fantasy viable guy down the stretch.
Yeah, I like him rest of season as a flex option. I mean, you kind of have to remember too, like these rookie wide receivers, when they come in, it takes them a little while to get acclimated to the league. So right off the bat, Emeka Egbuka down here in Tampa is a little bit of a different story, right? But most of these guys are going to take a few games, first half of the season here to really kind of gel with their offense and their quarterback, kind of earn their way more, onto the field. And that's really what Higgins has done. And if you take a look at the last 2 games, his target share has gone up to, well, not 2 games, sorry, 3 games. Target share has increased by 2 points. Snap percentage every week for the last 3 weeks has just consistently gone up. In the meantime, you've also seen Christian Kirk's numbers start sliding down. And so that to me kind of signals, all right, we've got Higgins. He's kind of taking that next step forward here where he's going to start eating into that role, that wide receiver 2 role that, Kirk has kind of held on to a little bit through the season, but I think he's more cementing himself as that consistent option there for Mills or Stroud or whoever is going to be under center.
I think we have to bring up Dalton Schultz here as they are they're kicking off here in Houston right now. Dalton Schultz, looking at his stats this year, it's pretty crazy to see what he's been able to do. 3 for 28, 3 for 29 his first 2 weeks. And then you look at this again, tight end premium scoring, 5 for 39, 5 for 30, 5 for 60, 9 for 98, 2 for 24, 6 for 77, 7 for 53, 6 for 51. I think that, and Farrell was kind of in my ear as he has been the last couple of years against Dalton Schultz. And I feel bad because I should have Dalton Schultz. I could have picked him up easily as my number 2 tight end in just about any league this year, Stacy, and he would have been playable as my starter in several weeks this year. I envision this is going to continue not only against Buffalo tonight, but against Indy, against Kansas City, Arizona, Las Vegas. Some good matchups here coming up for Dalton Schultz.
Let me redeem our family reputation here with Dalton Schultz, okay? Because I've been a big Dalton Schultz fan. Definitely, he's top 15 in the tight end position, averaging that throughout the season. Over the last 3 games, and this is just in PPR, I don't have the tight end premium points, he's averaging like 14.3 points per game. His target share on the season was 18.8. Over the last 3 games specifically, it's jumped up to 22.2%, second highest on the team behind Nico Collins. I know I mentioned about Higgins kind of trying to get into that second wide receiver role. He might be the second wide receiver, but Dalton Schultz is the second option behind Nico Collins 100%. And I just looked over at the screen. I had to I needed like some sunglasses for a second over those bright red uniforms the Texans are wearing right now. But big Schultz fan, a guy that you could have snatched off waivers who is consistently putting up good point. I mean, tight end position, it is what it is, right? You're going to have those top few guys that really produce, and the rest of them are going to be kind of mid. But Schultz has been somebody who has broken out of that despite being on an iffy offense with the Texans. So he's somebody that I'm not going to call him a league winner, but somebody that if you grabbed him on waivers, you won that, whatever you paid for him was worth it.
What's great about this too is he's doing it with a healthy Nico Collins and with Jayden Higgins coming on, and he's still doing numbers, right? That's another reason to like him.
Mm-hmm.
They are underway in Houston. It is the Bills kicking off to the Texans. Incomplete pass to Cade Stover, a Woody Marks carry for 6 yards, and then on third down, a pass deep down the right sideline to Jayden Higgins falls incomplete. They have punted, have the Texans, and the Bills take over after a holding penalty on the punt. They take over at their own 29, and the Bills immediately give it to James Cook for 4 yards. 2nd and 6 from their own 23, 13:55 to go in the first quarter. We will continue our coverage on that as we complete our Thursday night preview on this. Okay, I have to get into some of the questions that popped up during this. Tom Smith wants to know Andre Yoshivash.
Yes.
Or Yoshivash. I don't know how to pronounce
Yoshi. He goes by team calls him Yoshi.
The team calls him Yoshi. He has a super long tongue that he captures the fruit off the trees. And that may be a dated reference. You know what's funny? The old people and the young people might not have gotten that reference, Stacy. I don't know. Doesn't matter.
I thought this was a family show.
Well, no, because it's terrible. But Yoshi could be the number 2 receiver, could be the number 2 pass catcher for the Bengals this week in a game featuring Joe Burrow. So I would say, even if it's Joe Flacco, I think he is flex worthy. I would give him some flex appeal on this. And if it's Burrow tossing the rock around against New England this week, I think you're talking about a borderline top 30 wide receiver. Yeah. That's how I feel. I don't know how you feel about it.
Oh yeah. You are not going to find a bigger fan of Yoshi than me. A pentathlete out of Princeton, I believe.
I did not know he was a pentathlete. Wow.
Pentathlete. Yeah, absolutely. I think Yoshi's great. He's flashed when he's had to fill in for either Higgins or Chase or whoever has been out, right? If those guys are on the field, right, he's not really relevant, right? But when they're out, when somebody's missing, he has more than adequately stepped into that role. And so I think, let's see, I'm looking his target share, normally around like, let's see, what was it? It's not great. It's like 0.4%, something like that. The last couple games, it's ticked up a little bit. I don't have an issue with either Flacco or Burrow being back there. You're missing Chase, their biggest target, right? There's going to be a huge vacuum there. And I think Yoshi sets up with a great matchup here. The New England secondary is going to be focused on Higgins and shutting him down. So I think that just opens things up a lot for Yoshivas. And I picked him up in a couple places. I think you could definitely start him this week.
Yeah, I'm down a few wide receivers in some leagues this week. I picked him up as well. I plan on, it's one of those things. I think I overpaid for him, given that I think it might only be a 1 week thing because Chase is obviously back.
Yeah, he's a rental.
Yeah, so I get it. But I think double-digit points.
Yeah,
well within the realm of possibility.
For sure.
Maybe even more than that.
Oh.
Okay, so then we have Driver 1036 chiming in on Twitch. Hey, you all are Packers fans. What's the deal with Jayden Reed? Now, the latest I have on this, I was talking with Justice Mosqueda from Acme Packing Company on one of my shows this morning, and he made it sound like the Packers do not want to start MarShawn Lloyd or Jayden Reed. And we'll get into Lloyd here in a little bit. But they don't want to start them like opening their practice window in the middle of the week, and they have not opened up the practice window for either guy yet. So my guess is that gets opened after the Vikings game next week. Mm-hmm. Obviously leading into that Lions Thanksgiving showdown in the afternoon. So listen, I have so much. I feel like I picked up Jayden Reed in like I pick him up in like 2 different leagues every single week. So I have so much Jayden Reed that I picked up off the waiver wire right now. Not that I necessarily love that because I know how much the Packers spread the ball around, but if I get him for a buck or two off the waiver wire, I'm going to do that. So I have a lot of Jayden Reed. I'm excited what he can do, to see what he can do down the stretch, Stacy. And maybe more excitement exists because I feel like he and Tucker Kraft are more duplication of skills a little bit in that offense rather than complementary players. And so what you lack in Tucker Kraft, maybe Jayden Reed picks up the slack a little bit there.
Yeah, I think we're right on the same page, Balky. Like I was just thinking that. I was like, there's so many things that they do that are very similar and their skill sets and things like that. And so I also have been just hanging on to Jayden Reed. Anywhere if I was playing and I had an IR spot, he was going in it and I was just hanging on to him. And I heard a lot of the same things this week that, like he's getting close to coming back. We should have him for the fantasy playoffs, hopefully. So, and I saw the same notice about them not wanting to open their windows in the middle of the week. So, those are all kind of like good signs to me that, they're going to be back they're going to be back soon. So I hang on to them. Don't drop them. Go check your waiver wires for people that did drop them and give up. I think we talked about Reed briefly on the waiver show earlier this week. I want to say he's only something like 20% rostered, something like that, crazy, like across leagues. So he's out there, he's available, and he's going to be a huge contributor for the Packers as soon as he gets back.
Give you an update on the game here tonight. We had I mentioned the James Cook 4-yard run. Dawson Knox, incomplete pass. Khalil Shakir catches a 5-yard pass. Josh Allen gets a quarterback sneak up the middle to pick up the first down on 4th and 1. No gain from James Cook. Then a pass completion to James Cook for 2 yards. Ty Johnson picks up another Buffalo Bills first down with a 13-yard catch on 3rd down. Bills still in their own territory, 1st and 10 from their own 46, 10:06 to go in the first quarter. I have to bring up Darnell Washington here, which I think is exciting from a lot of different levels. Now, I don't know if you saw, and I can't remember what it's called, but Amon-Ra St. Brown and his brother, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Podcast, okay?
Yes, they do.
Darnell Washington was on this podcast, and I was flabbergasted by this. He's 6'7". Now, did you see this, Stacy?
I did. I subscribed to their podcast.
Oh, okay, so there you go. Yeah. What's it called? It's like
it's like the two, like the St. Brown brothers.
Yeah, I know, but what's it called? I
think that's it. That's how I found it. Was the St. Brown?
No. It's
like, called something else?
Yeah, it's like called like Undeclared or Undaunted or.
That tells you how much I paid attention.
No, hold on. I'm going to find this here. Maybe it is just called the St. Brown Podcast. Yeah, I think it is. It's just, you're right. It's the St. Brown Podcast. I'm thinking of some other. Probably something by my kids.
The other name sounds way better, honestly.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, it's their name. It's better for the Google search engine and SEO. So I get it. So Darnell Washington was their guest on this, 6'7", and apparently this dude currently weighs 311 pounds, and he's moving like with the dexterity of a 4-foot, 100-pound nothing gymnast right now. This is insane. Of how good this guy is. If you had to own a Steelers tight end right now, your love affair with Darnell Washington's production aside, is it Washington? Is it Freiermuth? I mean, there's Jonnu Smith is there as well. I feel like it's weird because it's an Arthur Smith offense, so I feel like I should want to have one of these tight ends on my roster to deploy in a pinch, but I don't know if I could decide on one. Maybe Washington just decided on it for me.
Okay. Also, incredible stat about Darnell Washington. Also, Balky, do you want to know how big his hands are?
Sure, go ahead.
11 inches, the size of a piece of paper. His hands like the size of a piece.
You should never drop a pass ever.
Never. He's been doing this since he was at Georgia. Okay. He's just been stuck. We needed Arthur Smith to come liberate Darnell Washington, which I never thought that I would ever say that about Arthur Smith. But he is the best thing that has happened to Darnell Washington. And you know who else is the second best thing? Is our boy Aaron Rodgers, because he loves him some Darnell Washington. He has had multiple fantasy relevant games. Right now, I'm looking at 2 against Cleveland, Cincinnati. He put up 9 points, 10 points here against the other game against Cincinnati. He's getting in the end zone. You have to love that from a man that size. Oh my gosh, if I'm picking one tight end from the Steelers, I think I got to go Patty Fries, right? Realistically. But do I have Darnell Washington stashed away in a couple leagues? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And also can I just say, I've watched that clip of that 30-yard run where he just throwing the Bengals left and right. I've watched it probably 100 times. And I cannot get enough of it. It just makes my day every time I see it. And the last one, I forgot who it was, but the Steelers guy, they were like running kind of like diagonal towards him. And the Steelers guy pushes the guy in front of Darnell and he just like, just tosses him off to the side. And it just brings me so much joy. I just enjoy that clip so much.
If you're ever having a bad day, just cue up that clip on YouTube or X or whatever, TikTok, and you'll be having a better day after that.
Yep.
I'll tell you who's having a good day. James Cook, who is now over 1,000 rushing yards on the season. We just talked about this, Stacy. He was close after a Dawson Knox catch for 9 yards and a Josh Palmer incompletion. James Cook rumbles right tackle for 45 yards, scoring a touchdown. 6-0 Bills because Matt Prater missed the extra point wide left. 9:11 to go in the first quarter. 6-0 Buffalo. And now I have to check to see how many leagues I have Prater in this week, which is hopefully
too many is how many I have him in, apparently.
Yeah. Texans are about to get the ball back. We'll see what happens there. We briefly touched on MarShawn Lloyd. I want to ask you this too. Rob Demovsky had a report, I think this came out Wednesday, that Lloyd is making good progress in his rehab. I want to say it was Demovsky last week maybe it was Matt Schneidman from The Athletic, but talked about both Lloyd and Reed, since they're still on injured reserve, they can't work out with the team, but they were working up both really good sweats. The hardest Schneidman has seen them work out this whole offseason, and that was last week, right? The fact that Lloyd and Reed are this close, that are working out this hard, means that they're this close to being activated. The question for Lloyd here is, what kind of a backfield is he coming back into? Josh Jacobs said, worst case scenario, he misses the Vikings game. Well, that means you're playing against Detroit on Thursday. And again, we're taking the injury analysis from the player, which I normally don't like to do, but Matt LaFleur has refused to rule out Josh Jacobs yet this week. So let's say Lloyd gets his practice window opened up next week. Let's say he's active for the Lions game. Emmanuel Wilson's looked really good. I think for what Chris Brooks does for this backfield, in the limited amount of snaps that he's in, but what he's asked to do, whether it be pass block or catch a pass or pick up a few yards, he's been very good as well. I don't know how MarShawn Lloyd figures into this. I have him on IR in a couple of dynasty leagues, and I'm wondering when he gets back, if I have to activate him, like, God, I don't know how relevant he's going to be in this Packers backfield.
To quote Michael Scott, as it relates to MarShawn Lloyd, I'm ready to be hurt again. I have had so much hope for MarShawn Lloyd for so long, and it just felt like every time, you just got so close to some relevancy, and he would get hurt again. I had to dump him in a dynasty league. I had so many injuries elsewhere that I just didn't have a choice. So I think you make a great point though about Wilson and Brooks, and they've looked really good. So I don't know that he would be fantasy relevant unless, God forbid, something tragic happened. But yeah, I really wouldn't count on him this season. I maybe want to see what he's got a little bit, just going forward, maybe for next year for some dynasty purposes, but I don't think I'm going to rely on him at all. And I don't even know that it's worth like a deep league dart throw waiver ad at this point.
He has missed so much time in his career at the professional level. Really difficult for us to sell, or really difficult for me to sell MarShawn Lloyd to anybody at this point, which is, it's not great. He definitely will not be a player that you pick up in the FFPC weekly challenge this week. However, that doesn't mean you can't pick up a Packer. What it does mean is you can't pick up two Packers. If you want Jordan Love on your team, you cannot have Emmanuel Wilson. If you want Justin Jefferson on your team, you cannot have Aaron Jones. It's one of the things that makes the FFPC weekly challenge so much fun. The Thursday challenge is closed. The Sunday one is still open. No draft, no salary cap. Just pick whatever 10 players or 12 players you want if you want to play with kickers and defenses and let them ride throughout the weekend. Again, just one player per team. You can play in 10, 30, and 100-team contests, win up to $2,500. Register now, myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. Gone to a break in the action here on Amazon Prime as we wait for the Texans to get the ball back. We will also take a quick break in the action. We are gonna do some starter sits when we come back. We're gonna talk about Tyjae Spears. We're gonna talk about DJ Moore, Taysom Hill. We will talk about as well as Trevor Lawrence. Stacy Perez, Fantasy and Frames, player profiler, and Dynasty Degens joins me on the FFPC Insider Access Show. Your start sit questions answered right after this on the Better Sports Network.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. We all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in a million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at my FFPC. You can go out and you can take the number one running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at: $35, $100, or $200 buy-in, and you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high stakes games are. That's where the best experts play. And that's where I play, because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket, and put that in my bio. FFPC champion. And the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
FFPC Insider Access rolls on here live tonight on the Better Sports Network. I'm Eric Balkman. She's Stacy Perez from Fantasy and Frames, Player Profiler, and Dynasty Degens. We are hanging out, watching a little Thursday night football with you tonight. Big return after that touchdown by Buffalo. Jaylen Noel gets the ball out to the 41-yard line, and then we see Nick Chubb for 7 yards, for 5 yards, and then Jayden Higgins catches a 10-yard pass, an incomplete pass to Dalton Schultz, and then Woody Marks gets in the box score with a 12-yard gain and then a 19-yard gain. So right now the Texans are threatening. They have the ball, first and goal from the Buffalo 6. Marks 3 carries for 37 yards, looking pretty good so far. Might have a Texans touchdown to report to you here in a minute. Let's get into some starter sits here tonight, Stacy, and we'll lead off with running backs as we usually do on this show. You can only start one of these players. Is it going to be one DeAndre Swift this week, who is going to be at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers, or would you rather play Kenneth Walker, who is at Tennessee in a golden matchup?
Yeah, I think I have to go with Walker this week. I think overall Swift has been more productive this season, but the Steelers are giving up so many points to the wide receiver position. I just can't help but think that Ben Johnson's sitting back there like scheming all sorts of ways to get Rome Odunze the ball, Luther Burden. I mean, maybe they'll go crazy, even get DJ Moore a couple passes. Who knows? So I think it's going to be a pass heavy game for them. So that's why I think the game script is a little bit better for Ken Walker this week.
And, he's been turning it on as far as, like, I don't want to say distancing himself from Zach Charbonnet, but we were complaining, at least I was complaining a lot of the year, that Charbonnet was getting all these touches or whatever. And it just seems like over the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks, Walker's getting a little bit more and a little bit more. So maybe that's the case this week. We'll see what happens with Kenneth Walker. I'm with you. I have a slight lean to Walker over Swift this week, just because of the Kyle Monangai factor as well.
Yep.
The latest we have, and I can't believe I didn't bring this up. This is my fault that we didn't talk about the Isaiah Pacheco injury status. He ends up getting was it a full practice or limited practice yesterday? Limited practice today, which is the biggest thing, and apparently wearing a massive brace on it. This is the Colts. I can't imagine that he'd be out there. I don't think he would be, which makes Kareem Hunt a little bit more viable this week. Stacy Kareem Hunt against the Colts, or a guy coming off an ankle injury himself, Jaylen Warren, who is at the Bears this week. Jaylen Warren did return to practice today.
Yeah, I don't really love either one of these. But you're probably having this question in your leagues right now. I think I have to go Warren. I think for me, I just combined his name. Kareem Hunt is a little too touchdown dependent. In games where he's not getting in the end zone, there's 5 of those this season. He's only averaged 4.1 4.18 fantasy points, and that's in a PPR format. So that's really ugly. So you're just hoping that he is going to like bully his way into the touchdown, into the end zone. So I don't love that I'd have to rely on that necessarily. And you can throw on the Colts. So I think that's really what Mahomes is going to be doing all day, is just kind of like throwing the ball. With them, their run defense, as far as the Colts go, they're only giving up 92 yards total, which is the 5th fewest overall in the league. So I think I'm liking Chicago a little bit more for Jaylen Warren, even though he is coming off that ankle injury there. Bears are allowing 133 rushing yards per game. I'm not even sure it's really even, going to matter who's under center at this situation. I think we're leaning towards Rodgers, right? I think Rodgers is going to play. Yeah. Okay. I mean, and let's be real, even with a broken hand, he's still better than Mason Rudolph. So I'm not really sure that really even makes a difference, but I think I'm definitely going to have to lean towards Warren here.
Yeah, Rodgers taking snaps from the first team offense, I believe, both yesterday and today. Pretty much all in the gun, hasn't gone under center at all. And it is his left wrist that has the fracture rather than his right one. So I understand we saw a big game from Kenneth Gainwell last week, but I do believe that if Jaylen Warren's healthy, we don't see that type of game from Gainwell. So I'm with you. I think it's Warren over Hunt. I know Brashard Smith's snaps have been descending downward for whatever reason, but I still think it's Warren. Update on the game here tonight. So I mentioned that the Bills had a first goal from the 6. Woody Marks gets it down to the 1, and then an incomplete pass to Jalen Noel and another incomplete pass to Christian Kirk. And it is a Kaimi Fairbairn field goal from 24 yards out. So here we go, Stacey. The Fairbairn field goals are starting. 6-3 now for the Bills, who are going to get the ball back. 4:32 to go in the first quarter here on Thursday Night Football.
Balky, do we have any stats on Matt Milano?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a great point. I'm going to bring that up right now. Let's bring that up right now, and we'll find out exactly how many tackles Matt Milano has, which is 0.0 currently. He does not have any tackles, no sacks, no tackles for loss, no quarterback hits, no touchdowns, no picks, no fumble recoveries, no forced fumbles, nothing. But
we won them.
All right. Tyler Allgeier or Tyjae Spears this week. Stacy, this is another fun one to do here. Tyjae Spears splitting time with the with Tony Pollard in that Titans backfield. They are hosting the Seattle Seahawks this week. Is Tyjae Spears, and then Tyler Allgeier is in New Orleans this week, again with Kirk Cousins in at quarterback. Adam Levitan from Establish the Run said this past week, you cannot start Tyjae Spears, but you cannot cut Tyjae Spears either because of what could happen with this backfield if one of these guys were going to go down. To give him a little bit of a rebuttal, I think I might play Spears this week over Allgeier. How do you feel about it?
So I just, even though you're splitting carries, right, with Tony Pollard here, I'm not really sure that makes a difference when the team can only score about 14 points per game on average, which is the lowest in the league. So I don't like their offense at all right now. Even if he was the only one back there, I think I might be a little bit more inclined, to start him. But I think I got to go with Tyler Allgeier here. You lose Penix, London's out, Darnell Mooney, we'll get to him in a second, but he's not impressed. This was a run-first offense to begin with, and it is going to be a run-only offense, I kind of think, back there with Cousins now. So I think this is one of those we talked about, running back committees that we could start. We'd feel comfortable starting both guys. I think I'd feel comfortable starting both Allgeier and Robinson this week.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I get that because it seems like Allgeier gets these layup touchdowns every single week. And New Orleans might be ripe for that this week as well. We have to go to Bill Hollywood. I can't believe I missed this. Bill Hollywood chiming in. Anyone think that Adonai Mitchell can do anything this week? Because he has to either play Brock Wright or Adonai Mitchell. which is awful.
God.
Quite frankly, Bill, I don't feel any sympathy to Bill because he is crushing the FFPC main event in Big Gorilla right now. He has several teams in contention, and by in contention, I mean like in the top 30, the top 20. I think he might have a top 5 team in one of them this year. So the fact that you have to play Wright or Mitchell, I hope this is not from one of your good teams, Bill. But to answer your question, and I can't believe I'm answering this question, tight end premium, I'm playing Brock Wright. Non-tight end premium, I'm playing Adonai Mitchell. I think that's how I leave it on this, Stacy.
Yeah, I'm not crying for you, Bill, at all. You get a new QB this week with Taylor in there, so maybe there's some sort of connection there with Mitchell. Maybe you can just cross your fingers and hope real hard that they kind of connect. But other than that, yeah, I don't know that I have any real hope for the Jets.
Jackson Hawes has entered the box score for the Bills tonight. However, it's not the way he wanted. It is a 10-yard holding penalty on the kickoff. Another special teams penalty on the Bills tonight that backs them up to their own 22. James Cook for 6 yards, Khalil Shakir for -2, and the Bills have taken a timeout with 3:13 to go in the first quarter. It is going to be third and 6 from their own 16. They have taken a break on Amazon Prime. We will not take a break here as we press on to wide receiver questions here. Start or sit one of these two players here, Stacy Perez. Are you looking at starting? Oh, well, I should ask you this. I'll phrase it this way. Who would you rather start between Darnell Mooney or Xavier Worthy? Two players we've talked about on the show tonight. Mooney at New Orleans, Xavier Worthy against the Colts. And just to be fair, Xavier Worthy, I haven't seen the practice report today. He's dealing with an ankle injury. He was slated to at least practice today. Mooney versus Worthy this week. Who you got?
I think I'd still start Worthy. And that's just, Mooney has really he's dealt with some injuries. And when he's been healthy, he's not really been productive. And then, I mean, you can try to make the argument of volume, right? Because London's going to be out. But you're going to have Kirk Cousins throwing to him. And quite frankly, Kirk Cousins has looked terrible the games that he's been in there. So I don't really, have any sort of faith that passing offense is really going to do anything. I mean, I think you have to downgrade everybody, including Kyle Pitts. I just think this is going to be such a run-heavy offense for the Falcons going forward, no matter the matchup. I can't feel comfortable starting any of those guys. So I think I've got to go with Worthy there, even on a bum ankle. I think I got to go Worthy.
So we have this from Driver 1036 chiming in on Twitch, saying that Josh Allen is down right now, and maybe that was the cause of the timeout. My video broadcast is a little bit behind. It was a 2-yard scramble on 3rd and 6 to make it 4th and 4. It looks like Khalil Shakir is headed to the injury tent on the sideline. We already knew he was dealing with that ankle injury. I'm about to watch the Josh Allen play here to see how serious this is and figure out if we can glean anything just on first glance on this. He gets hit from behind by, and I don't know who that was, but he's immediately writhing in pain. He is slamming his feet down into the turf. He's not really holding anything, maybe shaking his right hand a little bit, holds his left hand, still pounding his feet into the turf. I wonder if he knows, something happened on this play. I think that's why we've gone to a timeout. Shakir is getting checked for a concussion, according to Tom Smith, and the Bills have now punted. The Texans will take over from their own 34. Just watching the replay here, and he lands pretty hard on that right forearm, maybe right hand. He grimaces immediately. I can't see who the guy was who hit him from behind.
It was Anderson. I think Anderson got it from behind. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So Anderson, so this is the IDP in you. You should have answered that question about Milano and Stone before.
Ask me the 2 defensive players I know on the Texans.
Okay, there you go. So now Allen walks off the field under his own power, kind of flexing his right hand a little bit. I think he's going to be okay, but I think they're taking him into the injury tent just to make sure. He doesn't look like he's in much pain anymore. No, he's not even going to go to the injury tent. He's just taking a seat on the bench. Okay. Crisis averted, people, I think.
Everybody breathe. It's okay.
Everybody breathe. It doesn't look like he's being looked at by trainers. It looks like they're talking to him, but they're not really looking at him.
He just looks mad. Now he just looks angry.
He looks angry, which is good. Angry,
You
not
like it angry, Josh Allen.
angry that they had to punt here. No
Yeah.
doubt. Okay, getting back to starter sits here. Jakobi Meyers, DJ Moore. DJ Moore, I think, has been a player that we've been pretty frustrated with. And honestly, the Colston Loveland breakout game against the Bengals and Luther Burden's snaps going up certainly has not helped DJ Moore at all. When you look at these two players, again, if you can only start one of them, is it DJ Moore at home against Pittsburgh this week, Stacy, or Jakobi Meyers on the road against the Arizona Cardinals?
I like Myers on the road just because they have no options, right? I mean, I don't want to hear about BTJ. We don't know what's going on with him. He's not reliable, right? You got some issues, right? Maybe some injuries here in the running game. So Brenton Strange is still on the IR. He's not come back yet. So I like Myers, because he's been a really reliable target the last couple games. He's gone 8 receptions on 9 targets. You look at Chicago, there's just so many other weapons there. There's so many other options. Like you just mentioned, Burden is kind of coming on a little bit. His numbers are going up. DJ Moore has just been really frustrating this year. You've got Loveland kind of deciding to come on now a little bit more too. So I just tend to think if I've got to pick one of these guys, I feel like Myers is going to have the better day. Just that connection, that veteran presence that he kind of brings to that offense for Trevor Lawrence to rely on, as opposed to DJ Moore in a situation where there's just too many mouths to feed to make him fantasy relevant.
The Pittsburgh defense has probably been playing their best football, of the season over the course of the last month as well, which I think is another thing working against DJ Moore. Myers kind of finding his stride in Jacksonville, right? And I'm with you. Even if Thomas is active, maybe he's more active as a decoy, and that funnels more targets to Jakobi Meyers. The great thing about him is he is this high floor type of player. So it certainly makes sense to play him this week over Moore. Speaking of the Bears, Luther Burden or one Greg Dortch, who was the beneficiary or one of the beneficiaries of a record-setting performance by Jacoby Brissett last week. Burden or Dortch? Burden against the Steelers, Dortch this week, who is playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh, this is tough, right? Because Dortch had a pretty good game, right? He went off for 18 points. Look, is that likely to happen every week? I'm gonna do our second Matthew Berry quote for the night, right? You have to pick what is most likely to happen, right? What's the most likely thing that's happening? Is he gonna go off for 18, 20 points again? No, he's not. Is Jacoby Brissett gonna throw for 100 times a game again? No, he's probably not. He's probably going to throw for a lot, just because he has been the last few games. But I don't know that necessarily translates into higher points for Greg Dortch. I think I'm going to go with Burden. He's been coming on, just more positive things going in his way the last few games. Snap percentage is increasing over the last 2 weeks. We talked about, the rookie wide receivers kind of coming on in that second half of the game. I think that's really what you're seeing to start happen from Burden. They're kind of putting him into that wide receiver 2 role there behind Adunze. And that's what I think is going to be the future for the Bears going forward is those two guys, Loveland. You're going to see like these younger guys, gelling with Williams. So, not starting Moore, but I feel more comfortable starting Burden, I think, this week in that scenario.
Adam Schefter telling us on X that Shakir has been cleared of concussion protocol and he can enter the game when the Bills get the ball back here, which they might hear shortly. As after the punt, we have Nick Chubb 4-yard run, a deep incompletion to Jayden Higgins, and then another incompletion to Jayden Higgins as well. I think that's 4 targets for Higgins, and he's only caught 1 of them so far, which is not great.
Balky, are my eyes deceiving me? Am I not seeing any Nico Collins in the box score yet?
No, I've seen nothing. Your eyes are not deceiving you. I see nothing. I have seen nothing from Nico Collins yet. I don't know if it's the way that they're covering him, but I have not seen him on the broadcast. I know he's active. I know he's playing.
Yeah.
Just
did I miss something?
Yeah, no, you've missed nothing. You've missed nothing other than Jayden Higgins missing a lot of connections with Davis Mills so far. Let's see here. There was something I was going to say. Oh, regarding Burden Dortch, just to put a bow on that conversation. Burden's the more pedigree guy. I trust the Bears offense a little bit more, even though they have been more run heavy. And when you talk about players like this that are sort of like dart throws. Give me the guy who has the higher ceiling. Give me the big play guy. That's not Greg Dortch's game. That's Luther Burden's game. And Greg Dortch, 6 for 66 last week. If you're anti-Satan, stay away from Dortch and go ahead and play Luther
Bad
Burden.
vibes.
Yeah, bad vibes for sure. Absolutely. Noah Fant, Mace, I beg your pardon, Harold Fannin or Jauan Johnson this week. Let's assume tight end premium leagues for this as we look at the tight end portion of the starter sit segment of our podcast tonight. Jauan Johnson is at home against the Falcons. Harold Fannin at Las Vegas.
Yeah, so this I'm going to go with Johnson, but this might change if David Njoku ends up being out. I know he's popped up on the injury report. So if he ends up being out and it's just Fannin, maybe we might change some things there. I know we talked about this a little bit earlier too with Sanders starting. I think Max Crosby has a good day making Sanders' life a little bit miserable. So I'm just a little worried about him being able to get the ball out to Fannin enough. And I don't know that I've seen enough of their connection yet. I know he and Dylan Gabriel had a really good connection. He really enjoyed throwing to the tight ends, both him and Njoku. But it's not him this week, it's Sanders. So I'm going to need to see a little bit more before I feel comfortable starting Fannin. With Johnson, Shaheed is gone now. So he steps into that second option there behind Olave. You kind of like that. I think volume in this situation is going to win it for me. Just because, they are going to be throwing the ball. And I think the Falcons do still have a pretty decent defense, even though their offense is just completely tanked. And they're going to be focused on Olave a lot. So I think it kind of opens up more options for Jauan Johnson.
Yeah, I think even and Njoku did not practice again today. He's definitely on the wrong side of questionable. I think even if he doesn't play, I still like Johnson better. You mentioned the Shaheed aspect of this, and then the unknown of Shadur Sanders. I feel a little bit more. I feel a little bit better about starting Jauan Johnson than I do Harold Fannin this week, even without David Njoku.
Yep.
Driver 1036 chiming in on Twitch. Kenneth Gainwell or Zach Charbonnet PPR. For me, it's going to be Charbonnet unless Warren doesn't play, which it seems like he's trending to play this week. I'm going to eat my charbs, as JJ Zacharyson would say, and I'm going to play Charbonnet here this week over one Kenneth Gainwell.
Yeah, give me a glass of Charbonnet. I love it. If he hasn't invested in a winery, he's using his money wrong.
Yeah, this is something that should have been. Well, I guess NIL wasn't really in existence when he was at UCLA, but yes, this should have been done already.
Come on. And he's such a threat to vulture a touchdown from Walker too. That was kind of something I put in my notes when we were talking about Walker too, that I didn't even think to mention, but yeah, he's always that threat there to when they get in close to snatch that touchdown away from Walker. So I like him unless Warren's out.
The next drive for the Bills has started, and it is not Mitch Trubisky under center. It is Josh Allen. He is back in the game to hand off the ball to James Cook for a yard. He hits Gabe Davis, Stacy, for a 22-yard gain on second down, and then it's a James Cook 6-yard gain to end the first quarter. They are about ready to start the second quarter here in the next few minutes in Houston, with the Bills holding a 6-3 lead. The let's go through the last few here, rapid fire, just to make sure I get all this done. Taysom Hill or Luke Musgrave? I am going Musgrave here.
Ooh, I originally had said Taysom Hill, but now that you had brought up all the talk about, getting Musgrave more involved, I'm going to go Musgrave here. I didn't want to take Taysom Hill. I was trying to force myself into that argument. So let's go Musgrave.
All right. So you're saying Musgrave. I am saying Jared Goff over Brock Purdy this week because, I think the Jared Goff fantasy analysis is pretty cut and dry. If he's playing in a dome, you play him. If he's not, you don't. And he's playing in a dome this week against the Giants. I'm playing Goff over Purdy.
Absolutely. He's way better at home than he is on the road, and they're going to be a pissed off Lions team coming off that loss. So I'm all about Jared Goff this week.
This next one might be controversial, Stacy. I'm playing Sam Darnold at Tennessee, coming off a game where I believe he threw 17 interceptions that game. I'm going to play him this week in Tennessee over Baker Mayfield, who is in Los Angeles against his old team. I just don't trust Mayfield in that matchup against a really tough defense, whereas I think Darnold can just throw all over the place against Tennessee pretty safely on Sunday.
I feel like that has to be the right answer, but I just can't help myself from taking Baker here. So I just think it's got such good shootout potential. It's one of the higher over-unders of the day at 49.5. I think the Bucs probably end up losing that game, but I just feel like it's going to be such a shootout. He's throwing a ton. Over the last 2 weeks, he's throwing about 35.5 times per game. So I like that. And I think Sam Darnold's the last couple games, I don't know what's going on with him. It's like he's trying to be the second coming. What was it, Nathan Peterman, who threw for so many interceptions?
Yes.
Goodness.
Last one we'll do here tonight. Our beloved Jordan Love against the Vikings at home, or Trevor Lawrence, who is at Arizona. I haven't made up my mind on how I think this game is going to go. I'm leaning right now towards a knockdown, slug it out game between the Packers and Vikings. So I'm going to go with Lawrence. I think there's more scoring in that game, which is why I would bench Jordan Love in favor of Trevor Lawrence this week.
Oh, I can't say no to Jordan Love, Balky. I'm going to take Jordan Love. I think these two are literally like neck and neck with fantasy points. That would be a better joke if it was Davis Mills. But fantasy points are really close, 16.8 per game with Love, 16.6 with Trevor Lawrence. Passer ratings are completely different. Love has the 8th overall highest passer rating among qualified quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence is 79.4, which is terrible. I just don't like the East Coast team going over to the West Coast. I like a divisional matchup a little bit better, and I got to be a homer here. I'm going to take Jordan Love.
I get it, and it makes sense. And quite frankly, if this blows up in my face, at least I'll be happy as a Packers fan. Once again, hit us up, Stacy. You are doing stuff for Dynasty Degens, Player Profiler, and Fantasy and Frames. Where can people consume more of your content?
Yeah, you can find me all over socials. I'm at Stacy_Perez83. I'm pretty much everywhere. On TikTok, I'm Stacy P83. And I only bring that up because I do put some of my fantasy stuff on there. And on Tuesdays, I try to do some waiver chat on the Player Profiler live stream there. But you can find me on Sundays at 11 with the Sunday Tailgate through Dynasty Degens, and that streams on the Player Profiler Plus YouTube channel. And then on Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, we are at the Waiver Wire Watch Party over on Fantasy and Frames.
I love it. Fantastic stuff. You did another great job tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for 2 hours. And I'll let you get back to this game here. Jackson Hawes with an 8-yard catch, followed by another James Cook, 13-yard run. Cook already with 7 carries, 75 yards. Going to be a fun one. Stacy, don't be a stranger. I will see you again soon.
Yeah, see you, Balky. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's Stacy Perez joining me on the show tonight. Weekly challenge live with the FFPC. No draft, no salary cap. Just pick 10 or 12 players. Win up to $2,500. 10, 30, and 100-team contest available at myffpc.com. I want to remind you that we will not have a show Thursday next week because of Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We will have a special Monday edition of the show, 7 p.m. with 1 Week Season and Roto World's Mark Garcia, who's going to hang out with me from 7 to 9 on Monday as we take in the Panthers 49ers game, or at least the first part of it as well. Shout out to our producer, Sean Engel, for Stacy Perez. I'm Eric Balkman. This has been FFPC Insider Access on the Better Sports Network. We'll let you get back to the game. Enjoy the rest of it, and good luck in Week 12, everybody.